Okay, so today we're going to talk about hatching. Any pencil you can use. I had it last time. Red pen, black pen, blue pen, Sharpie, doesn't matter. It's all about the exercise and how you're working with lines, okay, for this. So hatching and cross hatching. Okay, those are the two of them. Hatching and cross-hatching traditionally have been used a lot in ink prints. They're used a lot in graphic texts, and they're actually pretty common in terms of utilizing a color and used as a mark to create, kind of fill in that color. So I'll show you some examples. So hatching, it uses directional lines. So we just have multiple lines going, okay? Now if I were to say have a shape, start with a cylinder, super easy. I can use hatching, linear marks to create the illusion of a shadow. I can then consider where that is and create a shadow that goes that way too, right? And depending on where I end the line, it can also indicate it's like an implied shape. So the way that these lines have ended, it's almost, I'll use a red to show you, it's almost as if there's actually a shape that's there, kind of referring to the curved nature of the other part of the shape that's casting the shadow, okay? Hatching is pretty simple. Sometimes it's kind of like, it's a tool that I use a lot in terms of creating a gradation scale using hatching and cross-hatching, because they're both often used at the same time or in the same artworks. Cross-hatching, linear marks, same sort of thing, but as the name suggests, they cross one another. So if you have, we have that, we can cross it. And how this works is the closer you're crossing, and so you don't have to just cross like two ways, you can cross multiple ways, right? You can cross diagonally, all right? And eventually you're creating a darker tone. So same sort of thing, I'll draw the cylinder again. We'll go with the cylinder. Okay, so I have my cylinder here. We're gonna start with some hatching. This time we're going to create some cross-hatching. So similarly spaced. And what this is starting to do is it's starting to create a darker mark. Now I can transition my hatches and my cross hatches so that we have more gradation throughout. Okay. So if I make shorter marks closer to one another, it starts to fill that in a little bit more. And then pull those marks out again. And now we start to have a gradation where, use the red pen again, this part is very much darker, implying more shadow than this part, which is kind of like a lighter shadow. And we can do the same thing to the top. And if you've looked at shapes, or if you're looking at the shadows, it's a lot easier to apply these hatches and cross hatches. I'll go this way. Okay, darker. Makes sense? So knowing what cross-hatching is, we can create something that's like a gradient scale. And this is a really effective way to actually create shading and grayscale in drawings with something that's more permanent, like a pen or a Sharpie, right? A felt tip ink, even like a felt tip like this, as opposed to a pencil. Pencils, you rely on smudging and shading and blending. Ink, you will rely on hatching and cross hatching quite a bit more. So as an example, here's our create a grayscale. So in one end, I'll have very sparse marks. So it indicates that we have a little bit of shading there, right? And just as you would do with value, the lighter marks can also work with pen. okay, when you're working with values in terms of with a pencil. Okay, and then you can work your way backwards if you like as well, creating less. Creating more space in between them so that you have a little bit of a gradation. And of course on the end here we have all of our hatches, our lines. Now what you'll find in professional drawings, I say professional, like really formalized drawings, works of art, whether it's graphic novels or webtoons or different things that you're seeing today, or if you're looking at historic items. So I've shared in your class written assignment, the grade 10s, I shared an old work of art. It was an old print. It used hatching and cross-hatching in it quite a bit. Try to find some other examples. If you're interested, reach out and I'll show you some examples, but you just have to look at or Google hatching, cross-hatching, ink, print, and you'll have a whole bunch of stuff pop up. But the ones that utilize hatching and cross-hatching in a uniform manner really are using it more successfully. So we have something that's very evenly spaced out, it becomes quite effective. Okay. So next we're going to do a short still life. So just so you can kind of see what's on my table here, I've put a piece of paper up behind the still life, but that's my still life there. Okay, so let's go back and you'll see a time lapse. I'm going to draw a quick outline first and then work with some hatching and some cross hatching, developing that drawing. So I just wanted to let you know that I've tried to put in music into my video recording software over here while I've been working on the time lapse. The time lapse didn't go nearly as fast as I wanted it to, so in the future, sorry, you'll have to bear through it. I do pause the video and I've cut out a lot of stuff, so please continue to watch because the voiceover and the instructions and the tips and the guides, they will continue once I start and finish this outline and get that grounded. Okay? Thanks so much for watching the video today, everybody. So what I'm doing here is layering how frequently and how much I create that hatching. So I'm just focusing on hatching right now, creating the texture of the feather. And towards the edge right here, I'm kind of creating more of a defined shape by layering my pen marks. Practicing making marks like that over and over, and I'll try to do one down here. Okay, is good practice. So if you find that you can't make a mark and you want to make one way, like I've wanted to try to turn this canvas already, but for this video I'm not doing that. The only way that you get better at making those marks is by practicing them like that down there. Another thing to keep in mind while you're working with hatching and cross-hatching is that it can be really applied to anything that you're working on in terms of drawing. It can be worked on for any type of subject matter with any material, drawing material that you have in hand, so it is very versatile. I strongly recommend that you do practice these techniques so that you do get better at drawing. Okay, so now I'm going to start adding detail into the bowl and then the shadow, and then maybe I'll frame it out afterwards. To add the detail, I'm going to use obviously cross-hatching and hatching. I think the texture of the smudge bowl is better for getting and using cross-hatching as opposed to just using hatching, which is really getting the texture of the feather down pat here.
So one other just editing voiceover kind of thing that I can let you know is that by the time I finished this drawing, like fully finished, everything was recorded, and the recording, all of the footage took about 26 minutes of recording. That's not including figuring out all the bugs with this software, not being able to put in my soundtrack, you know, all that cool, fun stuff to make my videos super hip and trendy. But the point of that is that in telling you that, is that it took me about between 20 and 26 minutes to really complete this drawing. I'd like to remind you that anything that I do should take you 3 to 5 times as long. So if you were working on a cross-hatching or hatching sketchbook assignment, maybe you're working on a grandfather teaching assignment, you know, an ISP of some sort, this drawing does meet that time requirement that I'm looking for, you know, in that 2 hours of working time. Okay?
Sorry, I just went straight for that after I finished the texture. I might add a little bit of texture around the top. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of extra texture here along the top. Kind of make it curl in a little bit, give it some form. And that's really one of the best things about hatching and cross-hatching, is that you can create the illusion of form, so that being three-dimensional, to an object. You can create the illusion of texture to an object, right? And you can really utilize and work with it just with a simple black pen, just a simple ballpoint pen that you could find at any, like I say, conference or anything like that. I'm just going to finish the drawing. Okay, so I've put a line, a nice clean border around it. I could add in a ground line, right? Just to show that it is grounded on something. Get a little across. Alright, and if you want, you could shade something into the background using cross-hatching and hatching, maybe. Right, and then signature, always good form down at the bottom, outside of the composition. And then good habit is also to have the ear.